In this problem, we're working with the position of an object as a function of time. For each of the regions marked on the graph, determine A, whether the velocity is positive, negative, or zero, and B, whether the acceleration is positive, negative, or zero. So the first thing we're going to have to do is see the equations that we're working with. For example, we know the velocity is the change in position over the change in time. And then we also know that acceleration is the change in velocity over the change in time. And we also know that although we're being asked to find the velocity and the acceleration, we can also try to find the position in this case. So for region 1, we know that the position is actually negative, since the slope of the graph is actually under the x-axis. So then for the rest of these regions, the position is positive. So we should just keep that in mind for the rest of the questions. And now when we're trying to find the velocity, we have to look at the slopes. So here, the slope is slightly increasing, it's increasing as well, and it's increasing again. So for these three regions, the velocity is positive due to the increasing slope. And now here we see downward slope, so this is where our velocity is negative. And then in this last region, there's no slope at all, so our velocity is actually equal to 0. And our acceleration in this case would also be equal to 0, since there's no slope at all. So now let's look at region 5. In region 5, we can see that although the velocity is downwards, that means the slope itself means that the velocity is changing. So that's actually a negative acceleration, a positive acceleration, sorry. And then in region 1, we also have a positive acceleration. And in the majority of the regions, we're also seeing a positive acceleration. So now we can start looking at the problems and trying to see. The major thing that we're looking at in this question is the change in the slope. That's how we're determining whether the acceleration and the velocity are positive or 0 or negative. So let's look at the different problems, the different answer choices. In region 1, the velocity is positive and the acceleration is negative. Meanwhile, in region 5, the velocity is negative and the acceleration is positive. Although this part of the problem is correct, we know that the acceleration is not negative in region 1, so we can go ahead and eliminate that answer choice. In region 2, the velocity is negative. We already know that the velocity is not negative in region 2, so we can go ahead and take that one out as well. In region 1, the position is negative and the velocity is positive. That's correct. In region 5, the position is positive and the velocity is positive. In this case, in region 5, since we have that downward slope over here, the velocity is actually negative, so it's not answer choice C. So we're left with D, which is in region 1, the velocity is positive and the acceleration is positive. Meanwhile, in region 5, the velocity is negative and the acceleration is positive. So that answer choice is correct.